Have you ever wondered what it's like to own your own business? Be your own boss? Welcome to Season 7 of Business Mentorship, Keepin It Real, where we meet with corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and join us as part of the shareyourstoriesonline series. Hello, I'm Trish Tonak, and today we're going to meet a small business owner, celebrate their great idea, and introduce you to the person behind the logo. We invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the show. Our guest joins us from Toronto, Ontario. Cindy Stradling is the founder of Cindy Stradling, Creating Positive Change, as a sales coach, trainer, author, and speaker. Cindy brings a breadth of experience that clients say provides a level of understanding for what it takes to create breakthrough sales results. Cindy's going to share her story on entrepreneurship and give us a behind-the-scenes look into the life of a small business owner. And I'd like to welcome and introduce everyone to Cindy.
Thank you so much, Trish. I'm really happy to be here.
It was really great for me to reread your guest blog today because it gave me really some inspiration about talking about sales, which is something that small business owners really, for the most part, don't enjoy, right? It's kind of the necessary evil. One of the things that you talk about is the truth about sales. So give us from your perspective what you feel the truth about sales really means for small business owners.
Well, I think it goes even beyond small business owners. We're actually all in sales. Every day we're selling our ideas. We're, selling our kids the idea to eat their vegetables, or, the husband to put away their clothes, or whatever it is. And I think it's gotten a bum rap over the years. And I think we've all had that experience of the, schmarmy car salesman, or we've been pressured into making a purchase that we have buyer's remorse. But I really believe in the women. I mostly work with women. I have worked with some men, but majority of them have been women entrepreneurs. They've got a great idea, Trish. They've passionate about what they're going to make or sell or do or consult or whatever it is. But when it comes right down to having an actual sales process, a follow-up process, identify, even if they know their unique value proposition, often they don't know how to go to market with it, how they can pick up the phone, how they can actually follow up. I'm way back from the old school days that talking to someone is the best way. Conversation is still the best way to build trust. And I have a very simple philosophy. It's say what you do and do what you say, when it comes to sales. Because I remember reading an article a number of years ago, and it said the biggest complaint that a lot of clients had was that salespeople would disappear after they got the order. They got in, they got the order, and then it was like constant follow-up, or you had to ask a million questions. So I think you have to look at the lifetime of the relationship when you start out in sales. You don't look at it as a one-off. You look at it as, at least that's the way I have always done it.
Right.
In fact, I had a call yesterday. I have a consulting business as well. And I had a phone call. We were going to meet for lunch, but unfortunately with the weather, we decided we'd just do it online. She was my very first customer that I started with my full-time my other business. And we've been together almost 22 years. And we talked about that. And I said that I was going on some, a few podcasts, and I was promoting my aligned sales training program. And she said, without a doubt, that she totally agreed with me. And I said, what would be the one thing that you think that happened between us that kept this going all these years? Because she deals with all kinds of people. She said, I trust you. I knew if you said you'd do it, you would, or if you couldn't, you'd get back to me. And I think that I don't think it's any rocket science.
Let's unpack that a little, because you've given us quite a few things to think about. And one of them is, you're absolutely right. Small business people have great ideas. But I always say you don't have a business until you've made the first sale,
100%.
right?
Nothing happens without the sale.
That's so true because the
Nothing.
sale is really the foundation for everything, right? Business
Yep.
development, any kind of product innovation or service innovation that you want to do, everything, nothing happens without the funds to be able to fund that great idea.
Absolutely.
And I like your reference to the fact, we actually do everything in life from a sales standpoint, but I don't think they teach us that in school, right?
No,
I don't
no.
think we approach it as something that's warm and fuzzy. You're absolutely right. We approach it from a place of, oh dear, I actually have to ask someone to pay me for the skills and experience that I've acquired. And I think that's one of the most difficult things, the hurdle that we have to get over, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, one of my recent clients, exactly that. She said she had created a not a sales training program, but it was an online training program. And it was very specialized in the work that she was doing. I don't have her permission, so I can't really share too much about it. But her concern was that she would be seen as pushy or schmarmy, or like she had this wonderful program that she wanted to launch it, but she had nobody coming.
Right.
So it was like, how are you ever gonna, if you don't? So I had her do a simple shift. So I believe we all come with our own whatever history, stories. Sometimes we have negative things about sales, negative things about lots of things, right?
Sure.
And her big thing was she never wanted to be perceived as being too pushy. And I said to her, I said, you know what, if you could just shift the word from sales to sharing. So you're not selling, you're sharing about your new program.
Right.
Can you do that? And she said, I can try. I said, there's no try, as Yoda says, you just do.
Right.
Anyway, I got this voicemail message from her about 2 or 3 days later. She goes, you were right. Nobody hung up on me. She filled her class. And people were thanking her for letting them know that she had created this. You could just hear it in her voice. And I got goosebumps all over because to me, that's what it's all about. And, some of the words I trained for the Canadian Professional Sales Association for many years before they closed. They closed after 150 years, they closed in 2024, the end of last year, 2025, sorry. And one of the things that we used to always talk about as trainers is even some of the words that we use in sales training, like prospect. Nobody wants to be a prospect. You don't want to hunt people. We always came from the philosophy, it was like farming. So you plant a seed, you nurture it, and eventually you harvest. A very simple, and that's what I like about what I do is that, and I'm able to hear in people's language how, like, sometimes they're surprised they get an objection. And I'm like, no, you have to be prepared. What are your top 3 objections? How do you respond to them? And no only means no today.
Right.
Right. And so to me, that's part of it as well, is it doesn't necessarily mean that they will never buy from you. It just maybe there's no need today, but you need to be able to have a process to stay in touch, whatever that is for you.
Let's talk a little bit about the psychology of sales, because if I hear you correctly, one of the barriers that we have to break as women is the words that we use to make us comfortable with the process. And I can't help but feel that men have a different language that comes automatic when they're in the sales mode. And I love the difference between, we're sharing information, we're sharing expertise. We're not necessarily selling it. We're asking you, if you have a problem, we have the solution, which is really what it comes down to, right? Do you feel there's a psychology that women have to overcome significant barriers in the way that we think about sales in order to create a comfort level around the process?
Yep, 100%. And that's exactly what I work on. That's why my program is like a 4-week intensive one-on-one.
Right.
Because we can take 100 courses. You'll get a lot of the same language. And unfortunately, a lot of them are written by men.
Right.
But it won't address Trisha's inside experience
Sure.
or Susie's inside experience.
Sure.
And so much of it's unconscious, Trish. We don't
Right.
even know it's
Right.
there, and some people would say, I remember once I did a talk at a networking event, and one of the things I said, was calling people, and I said, you have to have a system. You call them once, you call them 3 weeks, or whatever your system is, whatever your business makes sense. And she put her hand up and she said, aren't you bothering people when you're calling them all the time? Said, you know what? If you think you are bothering them, then you are. You have
Right.
to know your value. You have to know the difference it's going to make in their life, that they are grateful that you called. So I think is really connecting to your unique value proposition. I can't stress that enough, because when people can see the within, so often people, especially women, when they're first starting out, they'll talk about the features versus the benefits. They
Sure.
have to, you have to be able to understand. So why would they buy from you? Ask that question yourself. Well, why would she buy from me?
Right.
And be able to answer that question for yourself. But when you get that sort of yucky feeling inside, you don't want to pick up the phone, or you don't want to send that email, or you don't want to do the follow-up, or worst case scenario, we're in front of somebody and you ask for the order. Like, that is terrifying to some people. And
Trish.
so through role play, but we understand that underneath a lot of that is that whole, and I hate to say it, but they don't feel good enough. They don't feel smart enough. They don't feel
Sure.
whatever it is.
Yep.
That's what we have to work on, is to
Right.
be able to have them see their value. I remember once I did, it was a sales training program, 2-day training program. And the HR person and the sales director was there. And we went through everything. And I said at the end, and he said, so what's next? And I turned around the sheet and I put it in front of him. I said, sign on the dotted line, and we pick a date and off we go. And he said to me, it was a strong lesson. He said, if you hadn't done that, Cindy, I would never have hired you, because you can't teach my people how to sell and close if you didn't do it yourself.
So true. It's almost like we've been and we've heard the little lesson about, wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, and what you see in the mirror is what you project to the first person you're going to speak to that day, right? So
Yeah.
smile when you're talking on the phone, because people can actually hear the smile. It's almost exactly the same sort of psychology, right? If you don't
100%.
feel comfortable about what you're selling, if you don't have conviction about the solution that you're providing, if you're not passionate about the business that you're running, the people who speak to you, whether it's on a traditional old-fashioned phone or whether it's virtual in these wonderful platforms, such as what we're talking today, it actually translates through our voice and in our mannerisms, right?
100%. They've got to want to know more. So it's like, I don't know how to explain it. I get so excited when I'm talking to people, like for Athena, which is my other business. Like, I can feel when I'm been able to connect with somebody and I can actually provide them with a solution.
Sure.
It's a no-brainer. You just know it's that simple. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they take a course or they want to outsource it. I've actually met people who want to outsource that. They're wondering if they can get a bot to do it or if AI can help them. I'm like, no, you can't build trust.
It's your personality that they're buying, right?
100%. It's you, 100%.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sales has changed a lot since I first started my first job in 1995. But fundamentally, if I had to say what sales process would be the best, would be go back to being a farmer. Plant the
Go back to the
seeds.
basics, right?
100%. And you can see all kinds of people saying, do this, do that. No, people buy from people they trust, and people don't want to be sold.
Right.
People want to buy.
It has to come from the heart too.
100%.
Now, as an entrepreneur, so you've been in business for a number of years, you've been in the sales game, clearly a number of years. If you had to describe your experience as an entrepreneur. What keeps you going? What's the driver that keeps Cindy waking up in the morning and saying, yes, I'm going to keep doing this?
That's a really good question, Trish, because it's been almost 22 years. And I'm just as excited about it today as I was back when I first started. And it's happened quite organically anyway. I think knowing you make a difference. So I've established my sort of, I don't know, legacy or whatever you want to call it. I'm a person of service. And I recognize that through the charity I just closed. I love being of service. And so when someone gets back to me, I mean, I've had people get back to me. Like one girl told me she did more sales after 4 weeks of working with me than she did in the previous 6 months.
Wow.
So it doesn't get any better than that.
I was going to say, that's a wonderful testimonial.
It's on my LinkedIn. That's right there. And the thing is, because I'm a coach and because I took the solution focus through Erickson College, they really focused on, listening not only to what's being said, but what's not being said. Right. So sometimes it's in the little subtle things but I'm all action oriented because nothing happens without action. Right.
So true.
And so when I'm working with someone, I have them commit. I'm there to support them. Role play to me is fabulous because your brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So if you're going through that and you're getting this objection, I did that with the CIBC, I did mortgage advisors. I was going all across Canada and they had to come up with objection. They had to answer objections without using rates. Right? Because the first thing is, oh, our rate is lower. Well, no, what about other rates? So they had to go through and come up with these. And we do them at random through the program. I just walk up and do it at random. And it was at the end of it. And they all told me the same thing. I now feel comfortable. Bring it on. I'm ready. Right? So for me, it's the feedback. It's the feeling that I'm making. I think every one of us wants to make a difference, especially entrepreneurs. We all got into this to make a difference. So for me, it's making a difference and helping other people succeed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the courage, the conviction, and the confidence to be able to do what you want to do, right? To be able to translate a message in a way that the person that you're speaking to feels alignment and they feel seen, heard, and valued, right?
100%. Yeah.
Because just think of ourselves as buyers of products and services. We all want to feel valued as a customer to someone else's business. And it's when we no longer have that connection that we look to replace the service with someone else.
100%. And the worst thing you can do is have someone feel unheard. Like that, they get off the phone and you go off and you haven't heard a word. So that's why really good communication and good listening skills. And I almost teach not formal, but almost some coaching skills when people are doing their assessments with their clients to really get underneath. And so often, and if, they're trying to solve a problem with XYZ, but actually XYZ won't solve it. So you need to be able to go back and say, this is probably a better fit. So you just don't go along with what the client wants. You have to really dig in and understand that your product or service is going to provide them with the solution they're looking for.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that we do in our guest blog is we talk about 3 words of advice. And I'd like to wrap up our conversation today with you giving our viewing and listening audience an explanation as to why lifelong learning has been important to you in your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, if we just look at the world, the way it changes, I mean, just look at, the different topics. I mean, that's such a broad, I have books all over. I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm constantly learning. Not only that, as you get older, it's really good for your brain,
right?
As far as your connectors and things like that. But I like to just stay abreast of what's new. I mean, think about AI, just in general, AI over the last 4 or 5 years. Like if you did nothing else but read about that, like that's fascinating. So I believe you have to stay on top of it. Because I've met people that haven't read a book in like 20 years. And I have. It's hard to believe. Well, the circles we travel in, it's nobody there. But it's just being able to keep growing, and it's
Right.
just part of who I am. Lifelong learning to me in any profession is super important.
Well, it's how I love the way that you mentioned it's relevance, right? We need to continue to be relevant in the market that we're serving. And the customer is changing all of the time. And if we don't keep up with those changes, we become irrelevant in our own industry or as an influencer or a thought leader.
100%.
Yeah. So I love the fact that we're actually taking something that all of us can do. This is not, sales is something we all do. Lifelong learning is something we can all participate in. I love that your business is peeling back the onion to a point where you're saying, we all do this. This is something we all do. If you want to get better at it, I've got some tips and tools that I can help share with you that'll make you a little bit more comfortable. But to be quite honest, as a small business owner, I think we all need to be really comfortable with the whole idea of sales and asking for the sale.
100%. 100%. I agree.
Thank you so
much.
And
get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Well, I want to really, Cindy, thank you for joining me today and giving us some insight into your business journey and giving us some really valuable tips and tools that we can use, not only as small business owners, but in our everyday life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Trish, for the opportunity.
To you, our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this edition of Keeping It Real. And I'd like to send my personal thanks to all of our sponsors for their ongoing support. And I ask that you share and invite your friends and colleagues to subscribe to our show, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real, found on YouTube and your favorite podcast channel. Cindy and I would like to thank you for joining us. And we look forward to meeting you next time when we meet another business owner and celebrate their great idea.